everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be a review and demo of the Smashbox Shape Matters palette. If you've seen my last video haul, I did feature this in there, and I did say to you guys that at some point I would do a demo and review. I've been using this since the beginning of October, and I had a really good feel for the palette, so I thought it was about time for me to do a review for you guys. So it comes in this card box, and on the back of the box you have all the shadows in the same lineup that the palette has with their names, and also a description of what you will find in the palette itself. The palette is here, and it looks like this. It's completely black with some shiny letters. It's texturized, so when you pass your hands you can actually feel it, and it just says Smashbox Shape Matters. When you turn the palette around, you have the shades that are available, once again in the same lineup that the palette actually has. You have all the names in case you want to throw away the box, because the box also has the names and you don't want to keep this. At least you will find still the names available on the back in case you may want to buy this shadow separately. I'm not too sure if Smashbox does sell them separately, but they might do, so you already know the names of the ones that you favor the most. So when you look at the palette on the inside, you have a huge mirror right over here, but I don't want to blind you guys, so I'm going to keep that in a lower part. So you have all the shadows right here, or all the shades, what's available in the palette. And I'm going to start from this side. This is your brow wax and two shades. So you have the lighter one and one which is a little bit darker. Then you have the contour section, which you have a contour shade, a bronzer, two highlighters. One is matte and the other one is medium. It's shimmery and it gives you a bit of a glow. I don't know where I got that one from. And then you have 9 eyeshadows. You have 3 at the bottom, they're completely matte. Then you have 2 shimmery over here. This one, I don't think this one is shimmery at all, but it's like a satin. I would find a satin type of eyeshadow. Then you have another shimmery eyeshadow over here, which I will go with the names. I just want to explain these 2 are mattes as well. So you have 1, 2, 3, 6 mattes and 3 shimmery eyeshadows. One of the nicest features of this palette as well is that it comes with a dual-ended brush. So you have a angled part which I use for my brows, and then you have a larger brush which is quite fluffy and very soft, and I use these for shadow, just to apply shadow all over the lid, and I really like it actually. I didn't think that these brushes were going to be all that good, but I'm quite impressed, and I absolutely love this one for my brows. I use it all the time, and this one for eyeshadow. It just picks up enough product and is very easy, and it doesn't tug the eye, so I really like this brush. I picked this up at Boots, on my local Boots, and I was quite surprised that they had Smashbox products in there, because the Boots closer to me doesn't really sell high-end makeup, because it's not small, but it's not one of the largest ones where you have different departments like Clinique, Estee Lauder and stuff like that. This one is a little bit smaller, so it's the only thing that they actually don't have, but they had a really small stand for this. And what caught my attention wasn't because it was Smashbox, it's because it was half price at the time. And I do remember mentioning that in my video, saying that the palette was half price. It actually retails for £60, but I bought it for, or it was advertised on that day for 30. I still had a 10% off, so I paid less than £29 for the palette, which I think is an amazing bargain for the amount of product that you get from a higher end brand. So first I'm going to talk about the brow section. As I mentioned, you have a wax right at the top. Then the medium shade, or the lighter shade, is called taupe, and the darker shade is called soft brown. Now, when I first used this palette, I went straight away for the soft brown, assuming it's going to be a perfect shade for me, but it's actually quite dark. Not dark for me per se, but it's very deceiving. It doesn't look all that dark over here, but it does apply dark. So what I usually do with the angled side of the dual brush that we have here. I apply the darker shade, soft brown, to outline my brow a little bit, and then I fill it in slightly with the rest of the powder that I have in my brush, and then I go back to taupe and I fill in the sparse areas of my brow. And I actually find it quite natural. It doesn't look too aggressive, too sharp. It's not all done up brows. It's perfect for every day, or for somebody who doesn't like really very done up brows, as I mentioned before. It's quite natural, very easy to apply, and they're actually quite pigmented. Now when it comes to the wax, I haven't used it yet because I'm not really one to use wax on my brows. I still use my Brow Artist Plumper by L'Oreal, which is one of my favorite brow gels that I use. So I haven't really used that, so I'm not going to comment on the wax, but everything else in the palette I have used definitely. So I use both of them to apply on my brows, and it makes them look really, really nice. Moving on to the larger shades of the palette, which are these four right over here, which are supposed to contour your face. I'm going to start with the contour shade, which I use on the hollow parts of my cheeks, and I use a brush by Real Techniques, which is the 301 by the Bolts collection, or Bold Metal collection. And contouring is not something that I do every day, but for the purpose of this video I have done that, and I find that it does create a really nice shadow. It is somewhat cool toned and it does create a really nice shadow, but I don't think that this would work on somebody who has deeper skin tone, because I find that the shades right over here are quite I find that they're more catering for somebody who's fairer to medium skin tone. If you are medium to dark, I don't think this palette, at least the middle shades, will work for you. But I've used it today, and as you can see from the demo, it does blend in quite nicely, and I don't need to apply all that much. Moving on to the bronze shade, I actually really, really like it. I find that it's a perfect shade for every day. I apply it in the normal places in my face. I apply it on my cheeks. I do the 3 sometimes. I do apply it on my forehead. Everywhere I would like to look a little bit more tanned, more glowy, I will use that shade. Now these two are completely matte, so there's no shimmer, but when I say I want to look a little bit more glow, it's like sun kissed. That's what I'm trying to say. So moving on to the shade down here, which is called Highlight. This shade over here is a little bit yellow, but it's a very, very pale yellow. So if you are of a deeper skin tone, I don't think this will look very nice on you, because even when I apply it on myself, and I'm an NC30, it does look borderline ashy, but I still make it work, if that makes any sense. It really gives me that highlighted look. I set my concealer with this, and it just makes me look like I'm super awake and fresh faced, if that makes any sense. And I do like it. I wear it. But if I was a little bit tanned, because now it's fall and I'm completely down to my natural skin tone, it works. But if I was an NC35 to NC37, I think it would start looking a bit ashy. Moving on to the Glow shade, which is a little bit yellow but more pale as well, as I mentioned as the other one. I actually really like it. I like to apply it on the bridge of my nose, just a little bit on the end and a little bit at the top, and I find that it works really, really well. Now, once again, if you are of a deeper skin tone, I don't think it will work all that well for you, but maybe you can use it as an eyeshadow instead of using it as a glow. But I used it at the tops of my cheeks, and from the demo you could see that I was using it before I applied my blush, because I want my blush to blend in with the Glow shade instead of being so harsh. So I always apply it before my blush so it doesn't look too harsh, because they are quite on the lighter side in this area of the palette. Now moving on to the eyeshadow section, which I think is the nicest thing within this palette. I really like the color selection. It's the first time that I use something from Smashbox, and I think that they really took the time to think which shades to put on here, because this can suit a lot of people, different skin tones, because you never know where you're going to wear this. You could go to school, you could go to work or an interview, and I think this color selection can work really well. Now I'm going to start with the top row, and I'm going to tell you the names of the eyeshadows. The first one is Vanilla. The second one, the middle one, is called Totally Nude, and the third one is called Champagne. The middle row, the first one is called Stripped, the middle one is called Posh, and the third one is called Platinum. And then moving on to the bottom row, you have Sumatra, Aubergine, and Blackout. The eye look that I have today was created, of course, with this palette, and I find it very wearable for day and night. It really depends what you like to wear during the day, but this I think would be very easy to wear. You could skip maybe using a darker shade on the outer V, and it would look even more natural. But for the purpose of this video, I wanted to use something that would emphasize my eyes a little bit more, and I really liked how it came out. So I'm going to start with my transitioning shade, which is this one right here, and this one is called Stripped, and I absolutely love this shade because it's just 1 to 2 shades darker than my natural skin tone, so it works really well as a transitioning shade to any eyeshadow that I'm going to apply, whether it's matte or shimmery, on my lids, and I really like it. I also use this shade over here, which is called Totally Nude, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's called Totally Nude, and that one I use it a little bit lower than the first one, which is called Stripped, just to define the eye a little bit more, just to create that shadow, because my eyes look a little bit puffy sometimes in that area, and creating a little bit of shadow just makes them look a little bit bigger. On my lid, I use the shade Champagne all over the lid, and like I said before, I absolutely love this eyeshadow because it's very wearable. I actually have another palette from Kiko that has a similar shade. The texture is somewhat similar as well, and I really like it because it's a shadow that goes with everything. If you just want to wear it on its own with the eyeliner, it will look really nice. On the outer V, I used this shade down here, which is kind of like a deep plum color, which is called Aubergine, and I use that to deepen out the outer V. And very pigmented. You have to be very careful because you can just apply too much, so start with little and build up color, and it came out really nice. It just made my eyes look a little bit more defined. Like I said, this is a look that I could wear very easily to go to work if I have time in the morning to play with eyeshadows, and I would definitely wear that. The shade that I have over here, which is called Blackout, is the last one that I used, and I use this one as an eyeliner. Instead of using a liquid eyeliner or gel eyeliner, I actually use that eyeshadow, and I find that it works really well. Very pigmented, very easy to apply, very smooth application, and I find that it doesn't smudge. So I've been wearing Blackout and this one right here, which is called Sumatra, as a eyeliner throughout the day because I just find they're a little bit more smoother, more less predominant than gel liner and gel and pen eyeliner. I can't speak right now. I find powders to use as eyeliners are a lot more smoother than gel eyeliners, as I mentioned before. So that's the combination that I have on my eyes today. After the demo and the description of what you can find in here, now I'm going to share with you what I really think about this palette. Number one, which could be a con for many out there, is that I don't find that this palette is catering for every skin tone. If you are of a medium to dark or deep skin tone, this palette will not work for you, in the sense of you won't be able to use the contour shades, highlighting shades, and also the brow shades, because I feel that this palette from this section over here is more for fairer to medium skin tone. When it comes to the eyeshadows, I think a lot of you can really benefit from this palette because the eyeshadows are absolutely gorgeous. And you guys could see from the swatches, they are very nice. However, some of them sometimes come out a little bit chalky on the swatches, but the shimmery shades are very, very nice and buttery, I find. So that could be a con, like I said, from this section over here, that it's not good for deeper skin tones. But if you're just happy to have the eyeshadows from Smashbox, then you could definitely benefit from this palette. Now, is it something that I think it's worth £60? Definitely, because you have everything. I think I've already smudged a little bit of one of my shadows. You have everything in here. You have 9 eyeshadows, you have your contour shades, you have your brow shades, and this is a perfect palette for every day, a perfect palette for you to travel, where you're not going to be too fussed in taking different things. The only thing that the palette is missing, in my opinion, obviously, when I say that the shades are not good enough for deeper skin tones, maybe they should have released 2 palettes, one for light to medium and one from medium to deeper skin tones. I think that would be a lot better. But the only thing that I find that this palette is missing is a couple of blushes, in my opinion. If it had blushes, I'm not too sure where they would put it because there's a huge mirror here, but I think 1 or 2 blushes here would really complement this palette. It would make this palette a 10 out of 10, in my opinion. When it comes to the longevity of these shades on my skin, I find that sometimes the contour, I wouldn't say the contour, but the bronzer kind of like disappears a little bit throughout the day, but it could be because I have oily skin. It could be the foundation that I'm using. I'm not too sure, but it does disappear a little bit. The eyeshadows also disappear slightly. I don't find them that they crease. I just find that they start fading a little bit, but it could be because sometimes I'm not wearing an eye primer. I usually use my MAC paint pot, and sometimes I forget to do it. I just put my concealer, set it with a powder, and then apply my eyeshadows. So that could be the reason why sometimes they fade. But everything else for me that's just a minor, because I really enjoy this palette. So is it worth it? Yes, £60. Now that I know what I can get from a Smashbox palette, if I would see another one maybe next year, if they release another one, you never know, I might get it. I believe last year they also released one. Let me know if you own that one and if you would recommend it. But I like it. I do recommend it. But if you are of a medium to deeper skin tone, this is definitely not suited for you. So that is it for my review on the Smashbox Shape Matters palette. I do hope that this video was helpful. Let me know in the comments below if you have bought it. What do you think about this palette? Or if you're thinking of getting it after you've seen my video. And yeah, that's basically it. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll speak to you guys on my next one. Bye! Mwah.